Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to Next Gen Shoals Mayoral Forum for the City of Sheffield. My name is Sarah Ann Evans, and I'm the President-elect of Next Gen Shoals. Thank you for being with us tonight. Before we get started, I want to introduce Next Gen to you and tell you a little bit about what we do. Next Gen Shoals is a young professional organization in partnership with the Shoals Chamber of Commerce. Our mission is to find and foster the next generation of leaders in the Shoals. We actively work to connect young people together in our area through networking opportunities and provide opportunities for young people to gain new knowledge and skills through things like our Lunch and Learn series. We also work to actively engage young people in our communities. In 2016, NextGen hosted the inaugural mayoral debates in Norton Auditorium. Not only was the event successful, we felt that it was a necessary resource and opportunity for our communities to get to know the candidates running for leadership in their respective municipalities. We also felt that it was equally, if not more important now, to be able to bring these candidates running for office before the community. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges of this unprecedented time, we're proud to present these mayoral forums. I'd like to thank the Shoals Chamber of Commerce, not only for their support with these forums, but for their continued support and encouragement of Next Gen Shoals. We are excited to be a part of their Vote 2020 campaign. I would also like to thank our Next Gen board members for their efforts in organizing these events and their continued support of our community. All candidates who are listed on the ballot have been invited and asked to participate in tonight's forum. This evening will feature candidates from the city of Sheffield: Penny Freeman, Steve Stanley, David Johnson, and Kevin Robinson. Due to an illness, Kathy McMullins will be unable to join us this evening. Moderating tonight's forum is Dr. Butler Kane. Dr. Kane is the chair and professor in the Department of Communications at the University of North Alabama. He received a PhD in Communication and Information Sciences with a focus in media history from the University of Alabama. Before transitioning into higher education, Dr. Kane spent many years working professionally as a broadcast journalist, including a decade as news director of Alabama Public Radio. He's a member of the Rotary Club of Florence and serves as chair of the North Alabama District 6860 Rotary Peace Fellowship Committee. Dr. Kane, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm now going to turn it over to you.
Sarah Ann, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The questions I will ask tonight have been submitted by the public and have been carefully selected by the Next Gen board and a review committee. The questions have not been shared with the candidates or their aides prior to tonight's event. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the opening question and 1 minute 15 seconds to answer any subsequent questions. If a rebuttal is requested, I will indicate the candidates who can offer a rebuttal, and they will have 30 seconds to answer. Each candidate has 2 rebuttal opportunities tonight. Time will be kept strictly. The online platform being used for tonight's debate will indicate when candidates have 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and when time has run out. At that time, the candidate will be allowed to finish his or her current sentence. Also, this is a community event. All language and insinuations will need to be kept PG for the viewing audience. Next Gen Shoals has the right to cut off or remove any candidate who uses lewd, foul, or inappropriate language. Next Gen Shoals will be the sole party to determine what falls into these categories. Candidates, do each of you understand and agree to tonight's rules? Thank you. Candidates have been placed in random order to determine the sequence in which questions will be answered tonight. After each question, the order for candidate responses will rotate. The candidate who answers first will then move to the end for the next question, and so on. The initial order for tonight's first question is as follows: Kevin Robinson, Steve Stanley, Penny Freeman, and David Johnson. And to begin, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to this question. What are your priorities with respect to issues in this mayoral campaign? As mayor, what actions will you take to enhance the quality of life for residents in your city and the greater Shoals area? Mr. Robinson, you begin first.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. Thank you, Sarah Ann. My name is Kevin Lee Robinson, and I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. Sheffield launched my adult life into the world 25 years ago when I was going to UNA in Florence. My wife and I moved back home to Sheffield in 2018 and started the Do Right Man Barbershop and the Bless Your Heart Music Company, both in Sheffield. If elected mayor, there's 3 points that I would like to address to enhance the citizens' lives. Number one is the foundation. Make sure that our foundations are solid, and we can start by cleaning up the city. I think that it deserves that. We need to make sure that our infrastructure, our police department, and our fire department have the support that they need, that we're not losing members of the force every month. Are we prepared for the growth we say we want? Our roads, our sidewalks, and our budgets have holes that we can fix so that we're not losing money and citizens every year. Number two is our schools. I believe our schools are the long-term investment in Sheffield. Wealth follows good schools, period. Forward-thinking curriculum, skill training, technology and coding education would be just a good start. Making sure that the teachers have the support that they need and that we're flexible with our plans moving forward in this pandemic, that our children's safety is the highest priority. And number three is future opportunities for our business and for our youth. For people to stay here, we need to offer jobs and careers that keep them in Sheffield. We have a wonderful brand Sheffield has yet to monetize. We can offer the center of the shoals to industries that could profit wildly off of that brand. And it is my highest priority if I'm elected mayor to make sure that every decision and investment into this town is profitable for the city of Sheffield.
Mr. Robinson, thank you very much. Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. This upcoming election is crucial for the city of Sheffield. It comes at a very critical time. We're going to be electing a new mayor, 5 new council members. We have a new city city clerk, and we have a pandemic to deal with. I think in times like this, experience is very important. For over 20 years, I've devoted a substantial amount of my time working in various capacities to improve things in Sheffield and the Shoals area. I've been working with Sheffield since 1997 on the Planning Commission. In 2005, the Sheffield Redevelopment Authority was established. I volunteered to serve on it and was elected chair and have been the chair since 2005. I've been my 3rd term on the Sheffield City Council. I understand how the city operates. I understand its finances thoroughly. I just know how the city functions, and I'm prepared to step in on day one without any training to continue the progress that we're making. As far as working toward issues that are important to the city, the Inspiration Landing Project, I've been involved in it since its inception, and that goes back as far as 2007. When the first golf resort development was proposed. I've been instrumental in making the progress that's been made with Inspiration Landing so far. I was instrumental in getting the site for Furnace Hill cleaned up, and it helped move this project forward from the start. And I'm thoroughly familiar with all the aspects of it, including the capital improvement cooperative district that's established to pay back the loans we've used to pay for the infrastructure improvements. Other issues that I'll give priority to, as Mr. Robinson said, it's important that we clean up our city. I've compiled a list of all the ordinances, codes, and policies that we can use to clean up the city. And I think it's important that Sheffield look good, and that people visiting Sheffield will find it a desirable place to live, and businesses that come here will want to invest in Sheffield and thrive.
Mr. Stanley, thank you very much. Ms. Freeman, the question is yours. And we might have just lost her for a moment. So how about we move on to Mr. Johnson?
Okay. First of all, let me say I apologize for the mask, but we had some people come over tonight, so we decided to do the right thing and put our mask on while our supporters are here, and that's good. But yes, cleaning up Sheffield is by far the top priority we have to do. We can't ask people to come to Sheffield, spend millions of dollars and time and effort, and the place look filthy. There's certain parts of this city that when you drive into it, it's just disgusting. And the current administration has let that happen for 14 years, and I've never understood that. The only thing the current administration has passed has been overreaching laws not letting people get things done that needs to do things done. We have not been a business-friendly city, and we have got to become a business-friendly city. We've got to create a much bigger tourism atmosphere. I think tourism is definitely where the city of Sheffield needs to go, with the recording studios and the rivers and the lakes and all the opportunities we have here. We can become a tourism mecca, no question about it. But yes, it has to be cleaned up. And it's not just cleaning up one block and everything looks good. It's cleaning up some Sears properties in Sheffield that's been put off for years and years and years. I think Sheffield is sitting in a position today to become everything it can possibly be. We're sitting in a position of being with the beautiful downtown development that's been going on for the past 10 years, and the now Inspiration Landing project that Steve just said has been going on since 2007. We have some opportunities, but we've got to go to work. And it's just all about work.
Very much. Ms. Freeman, the question is yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Kane, for your time. And thank you also to NextGen for hosting this forum. My initiatives in Sheffield that will ready us for our next opportunities in the coming years start with safety. I believe that in order to present opportunities economically, in order to present opportunities with our youth, and at every facet, we have to first work on safety. Some of the main safety things that I can outline in the city is our street repaving and restriping. Those are things that we have started in the past, but they need to become a citywide initiative to make sure that the businesses and the families that are there have adequate flood prevention, to repair our sidewalks so that we don't worry about our children riding bikes in the street, to make sure that our community policing is continued throughout the city, and to make sure that we have adequate incentives to remove blight in the city as a whole. I believe that any initiative that we have that intends to move us forward in any reasonable way must include our schools. They must include opportunities for our youth and opportunities for economic growth and development. And so the items that I've laid forward thus far as it pertains to street repaving and restriping, flood intervention, economic growth and sustainability, as well as encouraging the removal of blight and encouraging the beginning of new construction as far as home construction and the removal of blight will all work together to increase our standing in the Shoals area, and it will work together to bring us to the place that we'd like to be in the city of Sheffield.
Ms. Freeman, thank you very much. Candidates, at this point, the remaining questions we have for the night, all of you will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer each of those. The second question for tonight is this. NextGen Shoals is a young professional organization. What efforts will your administration take to make Sheffield and the greater Shoals area an attractive place for the young people currently living here and for those who might be attracted to live here? Mr. Stanley, you begin with this question.
Well, I think one of the things that will make Sheffield attractive to young people is the Inspiration Landing project. It's going to be a music and entertainment district. It's going to focus on things that young people like to participate in, which is a great thing for Sheffield because our population currently is older than the state and the national population. And we've lost population over the years. So attracting young people will be very important. Another thing we can do is highlight the things that make moving to Sheffield easy, like our lower real estate values. You can get a home in Sheffield for much less than you can get in some of the surrounding cities. And we've got excellent schools, we've got career academies. They're amazing opportunities that we need to highlight better. And I think those are things that I would focus on to try to attract young people to Sheffield.
Mr. Stanley, thank you very much. Ms. Freeman, the question is yours.
Yes, thank you. One of the things that I think will be um, monumental in bringing young people to the city of Sheffield and retaining the ones that we have is making sure that they have buy-in in the projects that we have coming on. Encouraging projects such as Inspiration Landing to hire Sheffield residents in the construction work and in employment efforts, making sure that we have business-friendly policies and practices, encouraging youth-led organizations such as Junior City Council that I founded in the city of Sheffield 2 years ago. Doing these things, giving youth the opportunity to put their hands on the projects and not just see it happening. Coupling that with marketing and advertising campaigns will all go hand in hand in encouraging people to come to Sheffield and those that are here to either stay and potentially even open businesses here. So I think that in doing that, we will foster home ownership, new construction, and growth.
Ms. Freeman, thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, you're next, please.
I look very forward to working with the young generation. I think the expertise and the knowledge and the leadership of the older generation, such as myself, combined with the younger generation and the new ideas and new plans and how they can mingle together and work together and become very effective is a real plus for our area. And I think jobs is the answer to keeping young people here, always has been. So with the younger generation working with the older generation and coming up with the right game plan, it will make a huge difference.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. Mr. Robinson, your question.
Thank you. Youth is growth, and to bring a more youthful base to this town just means we need to let the youth know that we're an inclusive and growing city, that there's things for them here, that there's business for them here, that if they want to start a family, there's things for their children to do when they're here. Steve's right. We have the largest elderly community in all of Northwest Alabama here in Sheffield. And to change that, we need a younger demographic involved in city government. We need to have more involvement in our youth and city initiatives on the ground so that people actually see youth in Sheffield, being a part of Sheffield, bringing industries here. Having something for the youth to be here for is something that I would fight for.
Mr. Robinson, thank you very much. Our next question, candidates. The smoking ordinance that passed in 2018 has been hotly debated and even contested since its approval. What plans do you have to either uphold or repeal this ordinance? Ms. Freeman, you get the question first.
Okay. The smoking ordinance was highly debated in our city. And we got the opportunity to listen to business owners and to see the impact of having this smoking ordinance in our city. After having looked at the things that we were able to realize, we have a number of opportunities to make that ordinance better. And I would be open to looking at the opportunities to make the ordinance better, to make the language easier to follow, but to also incorporate things such as designated smoking areas so that people are aware of exactly where to go and what to do. We're certainly want to become and remain a business-friendly city. And I think by doing that, that starts with listening to our business owners and editing ordinances to encourage growth.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Obviously, I was totally opposed to it. It's not a smoking issue with me in any form or fashion. It's a choice issue. If a business person wants to come and spend $200,000, $300,000 in a business and wants to have the opportunity to allow people to smoke in his business, I think that's his prerogative. I think it's your prerogative as a diner to not go there because they smoke. That's your privilege too. But I think that law was a total overreach. And Penny said it's time to think about what the businesses want. Well, the businesses came to the very first 3 meetings telling her why they didn't want it, and they just ignored it and voted it to stay that way for 26 or 27 meetings. It's totally ridiculous. It's totally overreaching, and it's not business friendly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robinson.
The smoking ban needs to go immediately, needs to be 86'd. I've never been a fan. I've never understood it, quite frankly. It's seemed draconian from the get-go. It only seems to hurt businesses and to limit future businesses from moving here. I've spoke with our vets at the VFW Hall that have lost to the tune of $30,000 since the smoking ban's been enacted. All the businesses here have taken a hit because of it, and it just needs to go away. We need to allow the businesses to make those decisions, plain and simple.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley.
As with any proposal or item that's the city council has had to consider, I always research things thoroughly, and I certainly researched the smoke-free ordinance thoroughly before it was proposed. And what I found was, and we're certainly not breaking any new ground, that we're the 33rd city in the state of Alabama to pass an ordinance like this. Mississippi has 140 cities that have passed ordinances like this, and they're more successful with them because their state allows their public health department to advocate for smoke-free ordinances, where ours doesn't. In the United States, over 22,000 cities and towns have ordinances like the one that Sheffield passed. Looking at the research for the economic impact of smoke-free ordinances, I found that universally, where smoke-free ordinances have been passed and the consequences have been compared to the economy prior to the smoke-free ordinance, restaurants and bars have all done better after they became smoke-free, and it only stands to reason. 80% of the population doesn't smoke and doesn't want to be around it. And I think we've seen that borne out locally in one of our restaurants that formerly allowed smoking throughout the facility. Has seen a significant increase in the turnover of tables and an improvement in their economic performance.
Mr. Stanley, thank you. Ms. Freeman has requested her first rebuttal of the night.
I did. Thank you. I would like to address a statement that was made by candidate Johnson as it pertains to the businesses coming to the city to express their wishes. My stance on that was I would have loved to have given the opportunity to see what several months looked like after the smoking ordinance was passed. The businesses did come to address to express their concern about the ordinances, but this was following the ordinance being passed. And so I asked for 6 months, at which time we would reconsider with a meeting of the businesses. And I later learned that that would be a meeting that I could not myself call. So that meeting did not happen, but I am and have always been very open to speaking about it. And the restaurants that I've been able to speak with, those owners have seen an increase in their business.
Ms. Freeman, thank you very much. Mr. Robinson has also requested a rebuttal, the first one on this issue.
In every metropolitan city in America, if children can walk into a building, you can't smoke there. You have every right to offer a smoking section, like you said, Ms. Freeman, outdoors. In most cases, businesses make this desirable to be in. But I just don't think essentially penalizing a business for offering a smoking or non-smoking needs to exist in the city of Sheffield.
Thank you all for that. We'll move on to our fourth question of the night. The reputation of the city of Sheffield and its school system has historically been negative. What steps will you and your administration take to make Sheffield a more reputable city in the Shoals area? Mr. Johnson, you get this question first, please.
You're speaking in reference to education?
The city or education, yes.
Well, cleaning up the city is going to make the largest headway into ever problem we have is going to be to clean up our city first and to have our employees happy people, hardworking people. They are hardworking people, but I want the employees to be happy. I want them to love their job. I want people that live in Sheffield to love their city, to take pride in their city. Somewhere along the line, we've lost a little bit of our pride that we always had when I was growing up about our football teams and our schools and our yards and everything about our city that we appreciated and that we worked hard at. those things are going away, and we need to get that back in Sheffield, and we need to support our businesses. My wife and I probably do at least 98% of our spending in Sheffield. Very little outside of Sheffield, and that's only because something may not be able to be gotten in Sheffield. But I think people are going to have to start thinking that way. They want the roads fixed. Well, that takes tax dollars. I do have better connections in Montgomery and Washington than any of these other candidates have. I've dealt with the
Mr. Johnson, I need to jump in right there. That's your time.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, the question is yours.
Yeah, from what I understand, the question was about schools, right?
Schools or the city in general. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, schools. Yeah, like I said, number two is that the long-term investment in Sheffield is going to make sure that our schools are a desirable place to have your children go to. Being sure that we've got the right teachers and the right curriculum, and that we're looking forward to what kind of pandemic reality we're going to wake into tomorrow is going to be very, very pivotal. There's always improvements that can be done to our schools. There's always things that we can do better, but community-wide initiatives, I mean, thinking forward into community-wide Wi-Fi so that we can do remote training at schools, at home for schools, that students that need to stay at home for quarantine issues. We just have to be creative in how we approach it.
Mr. Robinson, thank you. Mr. Stanley, you're next, please.
Yeah, first, our school system has an undeserved negative reputation, if it has a negative reputation. We have an excellent school system. We have a high poverty rate in Sheffield, about 25%, and that creates challenges in the school system, of course. Children don't come with the same advantages as more affluent areas do, but our school system nurtures those kids and teaches them and brings them forward. And we have students that have become very successful because of the quality of our school system. You know, there's not a lot the city council and the mayor can do to improve the school system other than improve the environment of the community and hopefully attract more kids to be students in our school. Our schools have shrunk just like our population has over the last 40 years. But you know, cleaning up the city to make a more attractive environment for people to live in is a high priority.
Mr. Stanley, thank you. Ms. Freeman.
Yes. As a former educator, this topic hits close to home. I go to our schools. I have a child who's enrolled to Sheffield City Schools, and so I'm there. I'm there when the kids are in robotics class and they're building things. I'm there when they go to robotics competitions. I'm there when they are one of the few school systems in the entire state that have a gaming team. Our city schools are trying to do what global initiatives are trying to accomplish, and that is teaching across learning styles and teaching across curriculums to make sure that everyone grasps the concepts that they're given. I think that marketing is going to encourage our schools to be better. I think that dealing with structural issues as it pertains to our aging structures, our aging school buildings, will do a lot. Also, encouraging home ownership in the city of Sheffield and building opportunities for our youth to have jobs in the area will encourage our youth to stay and become engaged. I think at the current point, the major thing that we're missing in our school system is marketing. I don't think people really know or understand the hard work and dedication that is going on inside those walls. And so if there's a negative connotation with Sheffield City Schools, I think it's just that lack of knowledge.
Ms. Freeman, thank you very much. Our next question tonight for all of the candidates. With recent local and national unrest surrounding issues of racism and inequality, what actions would you and your administration take to make Sheffield an inclusive, safe community for minorities and people of color? Mr. Robinson, you have the first opportunity to answer this question.
Thank you, Butler. I confronted this back in June. We held a prayer vigil in downtown Sheffield with members of the community, with pastors from different faiths, and the police department working together to combat hate with its phase opposite, which is love and prayer. And I believe that if in your heart you don't have it to go after the one sheep there's the parable of the good shepherd leaving the 99 to go after the one that's in danger. And I believe that that's something in your heart that you have a hard time with, you need to do some soul searching. I think as a city, we can be preemptive to any unrest by showing that we are a loving community that does not stand for racism, that will not tolerate intolerance.
Mr. Robinson, thank you. Mr. Stanley, you're next, please.
Yes, yeah, I will work with our police department to encourage community policing. I think the more the police department is working in the community with the residents on a one-on-one basis, where they come to know each other, that creates a relationship that helps ensure that people are treated fairly and equitably. I think that the police department in Sheffield does a pretty reasonable job currently, but it could be improved. I'd like to examine our standard operating procedures. I'd like to implement some diversity training or additional diversity training so our police department has the right perspective on how to deal with our minority populations and everybody in the city. We all need to be treated fairly and equally, and I will encourage and insist on that.
Mr. Stanley, thank you very much. Ms. Freeman, the question is yours.
Yes, thank you. Community policing has been something that I have been a strong proponent of for my 4 years on the city council. From bringing groups of community kids to our local Michael Community Center to see our canine dog work, to bringing members of the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts around in the community and giving tours of the police department and fire department. Those are things that bridge a community together. Community policing, along with proper training, coupled with salaries that encourage well-educated, well-qualified candidates to not only apply in Sheffield, but to stay in Sheffield and gain the experience and longevity and knowledge of our community are key. I won't sit on a council that tolerates injustice of any kind for any reason. We as a city need to become a welcoming place for every race, for every individual circumstance. We have a number of community members who struggle with mental illness and other issues, and I think that our police department needs to be as sensitive as they can to those issues. Additionally, if we find that we have officers who cannot or have not demonstrated the vision of our city in their practices, then it becomes the responsibility of our city to react accordingly and to make sure that they're no longer officers in our city.
Ms. Freeman, thank you. Mr. Johnson, the floor is yours.
Yes, obviously racism is totally unacceptable. It should not be tolerated, but in any form or fashion. And I'm a little disappointed that Mr. Stanley said he wanted to see some differences made. He's been up there 14 years. So you're right, it is time to make some changes, Steve. Racism is a senseless hatred, and it accomplishes nothing. And it should never be tolerated for 1 minute in any form or fashion, and I will never tolerate it in my administration.
Mr. Johnson, thank you very much. The Shoals is a vibrant, interconnected area consisting of 4 main cities. As mayor of Sheffield, what steps would you take to build working relationships with the other 3 municipalities? Mr. Stanley, you begin this one.
Well, to start with, the mayors all participate on the board of the Shoals Industrial Development Committee. They also are on the board of the Cobb County Animal Control Office and on the board of NACOG and the board of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the policy committee of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So I would certainly be working with the other mayors in those capacities. And I've also been involved with the Parker study. The Public Affairs Research Council of Alabama did a study of the Shoals area and how the 4 cities could profit and improve things by working more closely together. It even considered the possibility of some consolidation of cities. And I've been a proponent of considering those issues, and the four cities working closer together for a long time. I've made presentations about it. So that's how I would pursue it. I believe there's a lot of opportunities, especially for Tuscumbia and Sheffield. We're close together, and we've got limited resources. I think there are ways that we can show some synergies by working closer together.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman.
Yes. So while our mayors are, we share seats on multiple boards that help to bolster not only the help to bolster the Shoals area, we also can work together as it pertains to sharing our ideas, sharing our interests, because we do have a number of shared interests as it pertains to several roads are shared between other cities, several opportunities as it pertains to, for instance, mitigation of train issues would have to be handled in multiple cities. And so there are a number of projects that we will have to work together on, as well as, for instance, Inspiration Landing will benefit not only Sheffield, but it'll benefit the Shoals at large. And so working together to determine how we will utilize those efforts, and with hiring practices and policies will be the way that I attempt to work together with the Shoals mayors.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, we obviously have done many studies over the years about the three and the four cities doing things together. The last 10 years I served on the Sheffield Utility Board. We were very active with the city of Tuscumbia on looking into how we can share water, sewer, treat the same sewer, give the same water, without both of us having to keep building new plants, new waste treatment plants and water plants. And so there's many things that we can do together from the outside coming in like that, that does not impact any one individual that much, but it will have a positive impact on the area. So there's many things out there that's worth looking into to doing that. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
The Shoals is a universal brand that we all share. And this is a case where what's good for the goose is truly good for the gander. We're a cul-de-sac down here. And if money comes into the Shoals proper, all four cities do well. If any industry had a breakout success in Muscle Shoals proper of the four cities, we would all do well. And this is something that I've been speaking to on the campaign of scarcity complex of if I have one, that means it's one that you're not going to get. And those days aren't here. We all profit when the Shoals profits. And it's my goal to work with all of the cities to make sure that that brand, that universal brand of the Shoals, is something that we can all profit from.
Mr. Robinson, thank you. Our next question for the panel. As mayor of Sheffield, how would you work to retain first responders, such as law enforcement officers, and would you pursue increased pay for them? Ms. Freeman, you get to answer this one first.
Thank you. My resume on the council will demonstrate that I've worked quite consistently to increase pay. The police and fire departments are unlike any other institution that we have in the city. They're putting their lives at risk each and every day. And so hazardous duty pay is something that I worked with to give incentive for officers to continue serving and working in a way that makes them feel comfortable at the end of the day. One thing that I do think is important is that our pay scale is situated in a way that our officers are often working multiple jobs. If we don't offer a salary that is conducive to them working a singular job, then what happens is we have officers who are tired when they come to a shift. The way our current shift is organized, officers are working 12-hour shifts. So I think an increase in pay is something that we definitely have to look at. We also have to look at training. We have to look at the availability of counseling. If they are needing it, they are facing repetitive PTSD circumstances by virtue of the job they do. So we need to make sure that our officers are mentally, physically ready for duty each and every time they go to work, and that they're also financially able to work a regular job.
Ms. Freeman, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
The pay for city employees of all in the entire city seems to have always been an issue in Sheffield and other cities as well. But I don't believe city employees are ever paid for the kind of work they have to do and what they need to do the kind of work they have to do, especially our first responders and really everybody. I think what our goal needs to be is to create new businesses, new revenues in the city, find ways to create that revenue to give job raises to the well-deserving people. And when you hire a good guy, you train him, and he leaves because he is a good guy, but he gets more pay somewhere else, you're just going backwards. So we may need to look at how we structure that, how we handle all of that. But yes, our employees and all the employees need to make better wages for sure.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Yes, listening to our firefighters' stories over the last couple months has kept me up at night. They're making a horrific wage right now, and I think we can do better. You shouldn't make more as a shift manager at Chick-fil-A than risking your life to protect our citizens. And our police cadets don't make much higher. I think that we can cut waste in the fact that we are losing so many every month to other cities. To give them incentive to stay here means you have to pay the right ones to stay, which also means training them to do the job. I think we're asking too much of our police force right now, other than just having a badge and a gun, because we don't have the mental health services that we need to be able to address things that they have to address in the field. I think that if we were able to pay and keep the police and fire force, that we would see less waste in turnout gear. That's $7,000 per man on the force, that when they stay 4 shifts, that's money the city never sees again. We've lost over $50,000 just in turnout gear on the fire department alone. And I think we can do better, and I think they deserve better.
Mr. Robinson, thank you. Mr. Stanley.
It's a problem that we've dealt with as long as I've been involved with the city, and it stems from our stable but modest revenue base. To Mr. Robinson's point about all 4 cities profiting when one profits is not entirely true, because Florence and Muscle Shoals are the commercial centers of Colbert and Lauderdale counties, and they have the lion's share of the sales tax base. Sheffield and Tuscumbia struggle because we don't have big box stores that generate a lot of sales tax revenue. So we have to rely on people buying staples. We've got our grocery store and our convenience stores, the dollar stores that do well. We've actually done better during this pandemic because we've had more people buying online, and we get sales tax from online sales now. So our sales tax this year is higher than it was last year. But it's still not adequate to provide adequate pay to our employees, public safety or otherwise. And I've found through my knowledge of our finances, when budgets have been proposed, I've found ways to make some cuts and offer some salary increases that weren't otherwise considered. I'd continue to try to be creative in finding ways to increase pay, but increasing revenue is the key, and Inspiration Landing is our opportunity to accomplish that.
Mr. Stanley, thank you very much. And Mr. Robinson has requested his second rebuttal of the night.
I don't think we're losing citizens because there's a Walmart in Muscle Shoals. I believe we're not paying our officers and our firefighters well enough to get them to want to stay in this city. They're trained here to leave to go elsewhere. There's nothing that's keeping these men in this town, that's keeping their families here, that's keeping their tax dollars in this city. I believe that if you treat them fairly and you give them incentive to stay, they will, and they'll grow with this community.
Ms. Robinson, thank you very much. Our next question for this evening: how will you work to actively seek out diverse voices when it comes to policies, municipal boards, engagement, those types of matters, specifically with regard to age, gender, race, and sexual orientation? Mr. Johnson, you are the first to receive this question.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And I want to look at all of those possibilities. who is serving where, what form is that board or not, and are people serving to really be involved and help the city, or are people serving to have something to do every Monday? Serving on a board, I noticed Mr. Stanley served on about 30 boards. Well, in my humble opinion, you cannot be effective serving on 30 boards. So we need to pick the right people for the right boards and the right positions, and put those people on those boards that can lead those different organizations and different philosophies to where they really need to be, and not just fill it with people that are friends that want to be appointed to something because they know who you are. And to get rid of somebody because they're old is not necessarily the right thing to do either. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a limit, but you shouldn't cut yourself off completely either. That's just my opinion about boards.
Mr. Johnson, thank you very much. And we'll note too that Mr. Stanley, will come back around to you in just a moment for your requested rebuttal. In the meantime, Mr. Robinson, you received this question next.
Diversity is inclusion, and inclusion means that we're having the conversation with every possible community that we can have. And starting in Sheffield, that includes our white community, our Black community, our Latino community, and also our deaf and blind community. I've made every effort to have every campaign video that I've released and everything that I've done publicly ASL interpreted, including the prayer vigil in June, because it's important to me to not just have one part of this community represented, but everyone, and everyone have a voice, and everyone be able to be a part of that conversation. So it just means being proactive in your thinking. It means being able to open up the budgets if that means having interpreters there. And it means thinking outside of just your own family and community.
Mr. Robinson, thank you. Mr. Stanley, this is your time to answer this question, but would you like to have your 30-second rebuttal first?
Yeah, I'll take the rebuttal first, just to respond to Mr. Johnson's comment about me serving on 30 boards. I don't count the number of boards I serve on. I don't think it's quite 30, but those I do serve on, I serve on because I want to contribute, and I've served in a leadership position on the boards that I'm involved with. They're all volunteer boards. I don't get paid for any of them, and I just want to make it clear that I'm not on a board just to be able to say I'm on a board. I'm on a board to accomplish something and serve the people the board represents. To answer the question about getting more involvement on the boards and getting more diversity on the boards, we've done a pretty decent job of diversity. We've got representatives from throughout our community on various boards, but we don't have nearly enough participation. And what I would do, and to start with, is replace the city's website, become more active as a city in social media, and communicate better to the citizens the boards that we have, what those boards' responsibilities are, and what the opportunities are for the citizens to serve on those boards. And I think there's a lot of lack of understanding in the community about how they can participate in local government. And I believe we can do a whole lot better job of communicating that. And I plan to actually begin that process by including on my StanleyForMayor.com website descriptions of all the city boards we have and what their responsibilities are.
Mr. Stanley, thank you very much. Ms. Freeman.
Yes, thank you again. I think the main answer to this question is getting outside of City Hall. When you are able to walk around and you have a relationship with community members, and when you have a relationship with the different types of community members that you have, it gives you an opportunity to realize gifts and talents, to realize, oh, you have a passion for this thing. We have a city board and an opening that would allow you to shine in this particular way. Building relationships in the community allows for investment. So once you have, for instance, a mother on the education board, or someone on the master gardener on the tree and beautification board, those types of influences that play to that person's current skill set That builds engagement in the city, and it builds investment, and can generate interest on multiple other levels. Also, when we add in marketing, when we make it easy for people to understand what's going on in the city, when we have a website that includes all major events, be they church events or social club events, when people just are plugged into what's going on in Sheffield on a day-to-day basis, I think that also opens up opportunities for us to encourage community
Ms. Freeman, thank
involvement.
you very much. Our next question, if you are elected mayor, what would your administration plan to do to improve Sheffield's economic development and vitality? Mr. Robinson, you get this question first.
We have to be renaissance with our concepts to improve our economic vitality. I've heard things like chain stores told to me as the hope and dream of what's going to get people to come to Sheffield. And I don't believe that that's the answer, especially in a pandemic. I don't think that we can rely on what has worked for us in the past. I believe we have to be forward thinking and what we consider to be industries that are going to make it in this reality. There are technology and streaming companies that would love to profit off of the brand of the Shoals and Sheffield in particular. I would like to see them set up shop here. That would create jobs. That would create an infrastructure, an entire industry that's never set foot here before. We just have to be creative in our approach to it. We can offer things to, of course, to music manufacturers, instrument manufacturers, and people that would be able to profit off of what the Shoals proper is profitable for. But I think we've yet to even see the creative potential of what our financial brand is. And I would like to see that monetized as greatly as we can.
Mr. Robinson, thank you. Mr. Stanley, the question is yours.
When I first volunteered to serve on the Sheffield Redevelopment Authority and was elected chair, I wanted to go out and recruit national retailers to come to Sheffield so that we could improve our tax base and prosper more than we have in the past. And I went to several of their, I joined the International Council of Shopping Centers, which is the largest association of retailers in the world. Went to some of their meetings and events and met with retailers. And I learned pretty quickly that national retailers have formulas that they use that have demonstrated that they can be successful when they follow this formula. And unfortunately, Sheffield's demographics don't match the formulas of most national retailers. They look for an area that's growing. Unfortunately, we've not grown over the last 40 years. They also look for high income levels, and they look for a low poverty rate. And we have a poverty rate of 25%. So we have to focus on local entrepreneurs. And we also have the opportunity of a transformative project in Inspiration Landing that hopefully will bring lots of jobs and turn our economy around. But we have, it's a challenge for Sheffield, and we have to continue working hard for it.
Mr. Stanley, thank you. Ms. Freeman.
Yes. I believe that the answer to economic health and vitality in the city of Sheffield is to encourage industry in our industrial park. There's no reason for a city to have an industrial park that is dead or dying. As I went around knocking door to door, speaking with residents in the city, I realized that we have a number of business owners who own businesses outside the city of Sheffield. And I think the first and foremost thing that we have to do is offer incentives to have them bring their businesses into the city of Sheffield. I mean, that for me is the most immediate way that we can bring financial health to the city of Sheffield. So realizing what talent we have that's already here and capitalizing on that, I think is key.
Ms. Freeman, thank you very much. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Well, I said it earlier. I think tourism is the obvious avenue we need to go. We have the river, we have the music heritage here, we have the Inspiration Landing possibility, we have the downtown Sheffield being revitalized. It's time to take advantage of that with tourism. Tourism opportunities is a great industry. The tourism industry hires, I forgot how many billions of people in the state of Alabama. It's a clean industry. People come, they spend their money, and they leave. some of them don't. But tourism is certainly an adventure for us that Sheffield, I think, could move forward with and actually become the real center of the shows, not just because of geography. I think with tourism, we will become the center of the shows.
Mr. Johnson, thank you very much. Candidates, this will be our last question for the night. What qualifies you to be mayor, and why should the community trust you to lead? Mr. Stanley, you're first, please.
Well, my experience to begin with, I've been involved with the city on a volunteer basis and other organizations in the Shoals area trying to make improvements for over 20 years. As I said before, I've been on the Planning Commission since 1997, been on the board of Riverbend Center for Mental Health since 2006. I've been the chair of the Sheffield Redevelopment Authority since 2005, and in that capacity, I think I've accomplished a pretty good bit. Also, in my third term on the city council, I've been a leader on the city council. I haven't sat back and waited for proposals to come to me. I've gone out and tried to find ways to improve the city and make those proposals. I've got a thorough knowledge of how the city operates. I've researched its history. I know how we got where we are today. I know what our challenges are, and I know our opportunities. And I'm confident that with my knowledge and ability to accomplish things and the experience I've got, that I can move Sheffield forward as its next mayor.
Mr. Stanley, thank you. Ms. Freeman.
In our panel of candidates this evening, I have worked with every city board. I've worked with every city department. I've worked to remodel and work on infrastructure in other areas. I've worked with our school systems on a number of areas, including writing an ordinance that put them down in Alabama history as the third city to have a junior city council. I've put together math, science, and reading initiatives that can be taught on a community basis using retired teachers and other educators that are known in those fields to be able to assist struggling students on a day-to-day basis. I've worked with our VFW, our Veterans Association. I've worked with people who have gone to war and experienced PTSD. I've also worked to plant community gardens, as well as working with our senior citizens initiatives in the community to make sure that all the people and their skill sets are being retained and displayed in the city of Sheffield. I had the fortitude to start a community food pantry that has grown to the extent that it can stand the test of a global pandemic and not even flinch. In fact, since COVID-19 started, we've reached out to over 10,000 members of the community, members of Colbert County, and served them to make sure that they had the food they needed to withstand whatever the issues were in the community as it pertained to the pandemic, and also reached out to our seniors to make sure that if they needed incontinence.
Ms. Freeman, that is your time. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Johnson, the question is yours, please.
Yes, sir. My background started in the 1980s. I was on the Sheffield City Commission for 9 years. And at that point in time, it was 3 people that ran the government, and the mayor, the police commissioner, and the street commissioner. I served as street commissioner for 6 years and street commissioner for 3 years. So I certainly have an understanding of how the city operates and what its employees does and what their needs are. During those times, we brought in, this was in the 80s, we brought in the Holiday Inn Hotel, we brought in the Ramada Inn Hotel, we brought in McDonald's. I mean, we were very proactive in those days, and we just made things happen. I have a business mind. I've been in business. I don't know how many business minds are on the council right now, but it makes a difference to understand what it takes to run a business, what it takes to start a business, what it takes to keep a business going. And I just have the ability, the leadership ability, and the knowledge on how to bring businesses into our city. I also was in the tourism industry for 22 years as director of the Alabama Music Hall of Fame. And tourism, I think, is definitely where our future is. And I'm ready to go to work after that.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. Mr. Robinson.
I represent something that none of these other candidates represent, which is a fresh pair of eyes and a fresh vision for a city that desperately needs it. I am a break from the same old same. And if given the opportunity, I will work for this city and I will serve this city transparently. The city doesn't owe me anything and I don't owe this city anything. I just want the opportunity to work for them for 4 years, and then we can give it another go.
Mr. Robinson, thank you very much. And candidates, thank you all for your time and your responses tonight. Thank you also to Next Gen Shoals for planning and producing this forum. And thanks to you, our audience, for joining us this evening. Local elections are August 25th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Be sure you know your polling place and take advantage of your right to vote. Please join us for the Muscle Shoals Mayoral Forum on Thursday, August 13th at 7 p.m. We will be joined by mayoral candidates Chelsea Kalchik and Mike Lockhart. Good night, everyone. Thank you.